Alright guys, HyDra again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. There are multiple teams that may be in desperate need of blowing up their roster if they want any chance of being confident of making the World Championship. The Boston Breach after their mid-season substitution with Shawnee in for Beans. Interesting storylines on them. Vegas Legion will know full well what's going on with that cap. But also the Minnesota Rokkr after last night. Accuracy and Gunless as an ARGO have not necessarily impressed. Do they even need to think about something as we go towards Toronto? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Apologies for no video last night. There was the Miami Grand Prix was on, and I'm not gonna lie, the matches yesterday were so uninspiring. There were some storylines. I thought, you know what, we'll talk about it tomorrow. I was talking about the Miami Grand Prix on the F1 channel because the timings kind of overlapped, and it was cool to see Lando Norris get his first victory. Right here he is with the OpTic guys a little while ago, and they did some content together. Of course, Lando Norris, if you guys aren't aware, now a Formula 1 Grand Prix winner as of yesterday. Krim was at the Grand Prix as well there in Miami. I think Courage was potentially as well. But yeah, he of course owner of Quadrant, an organization I'm not gonna lie may well be involved in COD over the next couple of years. They are in Halo, obviously, and it's relatively likely, I would say, that given the Halo, Microsoft, Call of Duty thing, there's a good chance that an org like Quadrant turns up in COD over the next couple of years. It's never made sense to any of those orgs to get involved when you got to pay $25 million. That is now no longer the case on the recent changes that we saw, so maybe there's something in that. So let's talk about these games yesterday, right? Because 3 matches, as I say, I wasn't massively hyped about any of these. They at least could, usually the weekend closes out with something somewhat inspiring, but like this Sunday was just so dull. But anyway, we're gonna get into it. This was pretty cool, I thought, for the league as well, getting JoeDeceives involved because he's close to those guys in Columbus. Kind of surprised he maybe hasn't been involved more until now, and there were just some funny moments. So I know that he was getting roasted a bit for his time on the desk. People like, oh damn, like at least he dressed up well, you know what I mean, for his appearance here. And there's also talk as well. I don't know what you guys think about this on whether the commentators should look at the camera, because I always found it kind of jarring when the commentators look directly down the lens, or the analysts on the desk look directly down the lens, because I mean, sometimes you are talking to the audience, but sometimes, you know, you're talking to your colleagues. I don't know. Like, obviously, it's important to, you know, look down the camera when you're addressing the audience as a host or something, but quite often you'll see that in any sports broadcast setting, the analysts are usually just talking to the host as opposed to talking directly to the audience. But, so I don't know, maybe people's opinion is somewhat split on that, because I think if the camera angles are good, then I think it actually is better to not be looking at the camera. But anyway, there's some debate on this. Octane was roasting him. Look at the camera while you talk, Ben. Ben's like, look, come on, they told me just to not worry about these camera cues. And Ben JoeDeceives says, focus on your super chats, little bro. But let's talk about some of these games, because Miami played Seattle Surge last night. This was an interesting series, I thought. Now, there's a couple of things to say on this. It is, from an internet perspective, one of the weirdest series you're going to get, because the Miami boys are based out in Florida. The Surge guys are based still in Vancouver, right? So it is a bit strange from an internet POV. But Miami, I mean, look at the slang here. They slammed them out of this map. Wasn't even close. I think what we've seen over the last couple of weeks is that this Surge team was looking better. 04 obviously seemed to be a bit of a shooter. He was shooting in and out of the server, right? Because this guy was talking all sorts of trash. We saw the drama with Simp, of course. aBeZy and aBeZy on their more comfortable roles seems better, and Hook tends to be always a pretty good player online. That was not really the case this series. Miami had a good chance to win the search as well here on the 6-star. They didn't. Surge tied out. I thought, okay, this series is possibly going game 5, which it eventually did, but it was a game 5 that Miami Heretics actually won. So fair play to Heretics. This does maybe raise some questions. Well, of course it raises questions on Surge. I don't think Heretics are as bad as people think they are, just because like their average level isn't actually that bad. It's just when they play the worst version of their game, they look atrocious because they don't trade anything. When they play as coordinated as they can, they look all right. And, you know, Lucky with a 1.3, ReeaL with a 1.25. I think he's been really impressive, not going to lie, since coming in. Nice kind of bounce back series of MettalZ as well. But everyone else is getting slammed. Hook had 12k as well over 5 maps, which is absolutely criminal. I don't even know how that's possible. So yeah, Hook had a bad series here, which is pretty rare against a team like this online. So, you know, I'm not saying that Surge are now terrible again. I think they might be better than they have been previously. They did take it to a game 5 here against Miami, but, you know, this was a high-rise search that they lost 6-5 to OpTic. I'm sure they'd have backed themselves to potentially win that one, but of course, that's not how it went. They're still looking okay for the winners bracket. Miami get another 10 points on the board, though, which could be big in the grand scheme of things, right? This is one of those series games, the 10-point swing either way can be a massive deal. Miami, I'm not sure I've got them making the World Championship, largely because I still have no faith in this team on LAN, and I think that was my thought on Surge as well. I thought they were significantly better than they were before they made the change, and I still think that's probably true, but on LAN, I still have my questions as to how this team is actually going to perform, and if they're losing online, it's not exactly a great sign. So Miami and Surge, they're not going to make moves, I don't imagine, anytime soon. They may after the major, depending how things go, and I kind of doubt that any team is going to make changes before the major, because it's only in a week and a half, basically, but teams are certainly on notice for making changes, and, well, one of them is probably the Minnesota Rokkr. They got 3-0'd yesterday by Toronto in a manner that I pretty much expected. Toronto, again, they didn't play phenomenal COD. It was a big bounce-back series here from Insight. I don't know what this gunfight was, but it was good to see Insight have a good series, obviously, just because he's been playing poorly as of late. Envoy still didn't play especially well, like he still had like a 0.75 or something, right? So I think the hard point was okay map 1, but after that kind of went downhill. They still won, it was okay, but it wasn't especially dominant. Maybe you wouldn't expect it to be, but still 0 points on the board for Minnesota Rokkr, and losing in the manner they did to Toronto yesterday. A Toronto that, yes, they always beat the teams they should beat, but as Stanley says, if some situational plays go different, we could have won all 3 of those maps. It was close. Stanley versus Scrappy, I was kind of expecting a bit more pop off between them. That didn't happen anyway. I was like, that was the one series I was like, okay, there might be some storylines in this, but even that didn't really deliver. And Scrappy was talking about his Surge not being especially good. I think this to me is where the debate earlier on in this season, which still exists to some extent between Scrappy for MVP or Simp for MVP of the season, kind of comes into play, is that Simp has been probably weaker in control maybe, although I think that's changed lately. Scrappy has been weaker in search and destroy, and obviously right now FaZe are the better team, so that probably is leaning the way of the Tiny Terror. But these were the numbers. I mean, Insight with a 1.3. Scrappy is like insanely good, by the way. Like watching this guy's POV, he doesn't miss. Envoy though with a 0.76. So again, this guy can't stop himself getting slammed, it seems, but they did win, and yeah, Minnesota Rokkr go down. Again, I think you'll see a consistent trend here with this Minnesota Rokkr team. Their ARs are like the same player, as are their SMGs. And I think this is where the debate is now being had on what you do with this Minnesota Rokkr team, because they did get a couple of victories this stage. I think they took down Thieves recently, which was impressive. They beat Boston Game 5 Round 11, which was not impressive. Anyone could do that. So they've got some points on the board. But at the same time, they're not exactly guaranteed for champs at all. Like, the difference in points between where they are and champs qualification is rather marginal, and it's still all to play for. Even for Boston, it's all to play for. But yeah, it ain't looking so good for them right now. Minnesota Rokkr though, I think most people would say, yeah, they'll make champs. But I'm not so sure on the evidence that I've seen lately. And it's not like they got crushed this series, but this is a Toronto that haven't exactly been dominant lately like they were back in Major 1. And since they brought Gunless in, Gunless and Accuracy have been trading blows for dropping low damage and low kills. And you kind of see it again. Like, I just don't see how Gunless and Lamar are both going to have a good series at the same time. And I feel like it's also true of Lind and Stanley. One of them can go off. They're just very similar players, really. I don't think there's one that enables the other. And Gunless effectively is coming in and doing a very similar thing to Accuracy is doing. He's a slowish Iron Boots AR, it seems nowadays, which is the same as Accuracy. He probably gets more kills than Accuracy, to be honest, and he's also a bit of a communicator. Is he a leader outside of the game in the way that Accuracy is? Maybe not, and this is why we discussed it on Surge for some time in previous seasons, that maybe, you know, Accuracy to a coach of this team makes a lot of sense, or coaching some team somewhere, but no, he stays in the league, and Accuracy was good at the start of the season. There's no getting around that. Okay, he was good by the standards we expected of him, because I think the last few years, Accuracy's individual play has regressed, probably every single year. So, looking at this season, I think the concern was he was going to come in dropping 0.8s every series. But at the start of the year, he wasn't. He was holding his own, 1.0s, 0.95s, like, you know, doing enough. I think he averaged something in that ballpark for the first stage or so. And maybe ever since then, it's been somewhat regressing. But especially since this change, Vivid gone, one of the space makers, maybe on the roster, Gunless comes in, Standy comes in. The team, it doesn't seem like Accuracy is performing as well individually. And if Accuracy isn't bringing any numbers, and the other guys aren't really bringing an awful lot of slaying, it's just tough to see where the upset potential really comes from here. So before we discuss this series, I will just share what was said on the flank about this, and basically the opinions on Asim, and also the opinions on that potential Minnesota Rokkr team from Aches.
And yeah, I mean, you ripped the band-aid off to start the show, but Asim was not what this team needed, and I said it when he joined the team that this is arguably his best team, like coming into it. I think his New York team, was it with you, Tom, in Cold War or something?
Yes, I didn't really.
I thought that team was like pretty fucking good, but like I think
our FaZe team was the best team he's probably had.
I think this team is up there though, for sure. I think it like coming into it and the expectation of just coming in, slotting in, learning the system, getting kills, and going. And I said that if he didn't succeed here, this is probably going to be his last opportunity. And I mean, listen, bro, I'm just beginning. He's getting shit on. Like we talked about Geo not playing well. We talked about a complete team regression, but we had a decent series from everyone today. Granted, they're negative, but like it's not by much. But I mean, Asim was just not a non-factor today and hasn't been since you joined the team.
You guys want to know what I'm doing to this team?
What'd you do to this team, Slay?
Dropping Lamar and picking up Reese and moving Standy to a flex.
So you would Standy flex, Linz, Reese, sub, and Gunless main?
Yeah.
Oh, they're not repicking up. No, has there been a team that drops somebody and repicks them up ever?
I feel like that's definitely happened.
In the same year, not like not benching someone and then re-putting them in the roster, like fully dropped. Has that happened?
Why not?
Capsule? People are saying Capsule. Dashy?
Okay. Dashy. Was Dashy let go or was he benched?
I think he was benched.
He was benched.
I'm talking about like physically dropped off the roster. Goodbye. No longer.
Like contract terminated.
Yeah, and then they re-signed him on the same year. I don't think that's happened. I could be wrong. You guys can let me know in chat.
People were saying JoeDeceives, but Joe got benched, so that's
Joe was also benched.
Yeah,
I don't think that's happened. I think they don't. I don't think Reese gets back on this roster. I don't think
they
need some goddamn pace. Is what they need.
They need pace, bro. Bad. Go ahead, Ben. What are you saying, Ben?
Is Dave and Cole? People were mentioning like the Florida situation. It's possible that Dave and Cole at one point when they were on and off the roster, one or both of them had gotten dropped. That's
maybe,
like
but I'm also talking about in the same year, bro. Like I'm not talking about like in the off season they get re-picked up. Like I'm talking about in the same year. I don't know if that's happened, but that I don't think that's gonna happen. Regardless if it's happened or not, I just think the possibility of it is just unlikely. If they're gonna make another change, it would be somebody new.
We've also got to discuss the Boston Breach, right? Because they are rock bottom of the league right now, dead last. It ain't looking good. And once again, Beans was not able to play. I think this was probably expected. I don't know what's wrong with his back. He had this back injury, of course, a couple of days ago. Doesn't seem like something that's going to be fixed immediately. Whatever it is, wishing the best for him. But yeah, Beans unable to play again, and therefore Shawnee into the starting team again. Shawnee, great player, I thought, in his day, and did such a commendable job in this series over the last couple of days. So as Den says, carefully monitoring Beans' progress, his well-being is of utmost importance. We're doing everything in our power to make sure he can get back to doing what he loves. So, he doesn't say, well, he's making progress, but it's not enough yet. He says, we're doing our best for him. So probably a bit concerning there. And Thieves, they handle business. They still can't win a control, Thieves, which is concerning, I think, kind of big time, because they've had so many series this year, Thieves, where they've gone up 2-0 and then it all starts to crumble apart, and it was kind of happening again against Boston. The good thing is for Thieves that Boston are terrible, so they could close out the game. I mean, this was talked about on the flank, and this is pretty shocking, to be honest with you. It was the round 11 in the search and destroy. They got Snoopy in a position to make a play. He was in their spawn. He had 13 kills already. Like, Snoopy this guy is making the impact happen, right? You look at this roster, sure, does he know the rotations? I know that's like a joke that is going around. I imagine he knows the rotations now. Slash has said that he didn't know the spawns, and he was, forgetting search and destroy strats. And sure, maybe that's a problem, but the guy is talented. Like, I don't think anyone has any illusions about that. And honestly, he was the one making the plays for this Boston team. The rest of the guys are so-so. Like, the mini-map is what to look at here. Snoopy's been in their spawn now for, like, basically 45 seconds. And the Thieves guys have him absolutely surrounded. Like, they're all looking for Snoopy. They're all trying to kill him. And look at the rest of the guys. Number 7, number 8, number 6. They're just chilling, doing absolutely nothing on the map. So they lose the search. They eventually get crushed in the game 4. Shawnee, though, did a commendable job. I don't think he will stay around on the team, but I think he's done enough to show that he can at least be a competent player somewhere if he wanted to potentially make a return at some point. Pentagrxm had a phenomenal control as well, so actually his numbers this year, or this series, look really good. And Penta's been getting better, honestly, fair play, given the fact that I clowned him a lot, and for good reason, I think, in the early days. At least in the respawns, he's been getting better, but like their search, they're still bottling it, to be honest, when it matters. But I think the discussion of roster changes came around Priestahh here, because Priestahh with Shawnee in the team, you might expect Shawnee comes in, he's going to fill the gaps. Priestahh is there to slay, he's there to pick up the slack and deliver some numbers. That didn't happen. Like, he got slammed this weekend, which isn't a good sign for them. So I think for Boston, they've probably got to recognize that the World Championship is probably chalked. I don't think it's going to be happening. These are the standings, by the way. Rokkr are at 120. World Championship cutoff is 100. So it's all to play for. Like, there's no team here that's safe. And Boston are just quite a long way away now. So they might have to consider, like, you know what? It's already chalked. We've got to consider what changes we make now to try and prepare ourselves the best for next season. So a few things I'd be looking at here. Gorillas, you know, there's a few teams that probably won't make changes anyway, regardless of what happens. But I think the major will determine a lot, because there is time after the major to make a move going into the World Championship. It's all to play for. Vegas have regressed massively. Like, they've got to think about it. I think even Minnesota Rokkr, I mean, they're 9-17 this season, Rokkr, but they're still 5th, which is pretty ridiculous. So very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.